Imagine standing at the very peak of the world, where every breath you take is recorded, every blink is analyzed, and every smile is scrutinized by millions of eyes. This is the reality for Jungkook, the golden maknae of BTS, a man whose name has become synonymous with global dominance. But with great power comes a terrifying shadow. What happens when that shadow starts to whisper lies? What happens when the very world that built you up decides to tear you down with stories that never even happened? In the high-stakes world of K-pop, a single fake headline can be more lethal than a bullet. And for Jungkook, the road to the top has been paved with malicious whispers, doctored photos, and calculated character assassinations that almost cost him everything. Tonight, we aren't just looking at gossip. We are deconstructing the psychology of the fake scandal and the resilience of a young artist who refused to break. Have you ever wondered how much a human heart can endure before the pressure of a million lies becomes too heavy? Is it possible for the truth to shine through when the internet has already made up its mind? And most importantly, who actually benefits when an icon falls? Get ready, because we are diving deep into the dark side of fame to reveal the moments where the world almost lost its brightest star to the void of misinformation. This is the narrative of survival, truth, and the price of being the best.
Number 10. The Tattoo Parlor Trap. The Shadow of Jeju Island. Imagine the scene. It is late 2019, and for the first time since their debut, the titans of global pop, BTS, are granted a much-needed period of extended rest and relaxation. For jeon Jungkook, this was supposed to be a time of reclamation, a chance to step out of the blinding neon lights of the stadium and into the quiet, salt-tangled air of Jeju Island. He was just a young man in his early 20s, finally finding the space to explore his own skin, his own identity, and the art of tattooing that he had long admired. But in the world of high-stakes idol culture, a moment of personal freedom is often treated as a public crime. The scandal broke like a sudden, violent storm when a grainy, low-resolution CCTV image was leaked from a local karaoke business. It showed a young man, allegedly Jungkook, with his arms around a woman, identified later as a professional tattoo artist. Within minutes, the internet was not just talking, it was screaming. The narrative was instantly hijacked by bad actors and overzealous spectators who didn't want the truth, they wanted a drama. They claimed he was in a secret relationship, that he was reckless with his fame, and that he was abandoning the pure image the industry had meticulously crafted for him. But let's look closer at the sheer psychological weight of this moment. Imagine being 22 years old, enjoying a meal with friends after years of non-stop work, only to find that your every movement was being tracked by a security camera that was then weaponized against you. This wasn't just a dating rumor, it was a massive breach of privacy and a calculated character assassination. The woman in the photo, a talented artist who was simply a friend and part of his social circle, became the target of a terrifying wave of online vitriol. Her business was harassed, her personal life was dissected, and she was forced to issue a statement clarifying that they were not dating, a statement that many refused to believe because the lie was more entertaining than the reality. The emotional fallout for Jungkook was visible. For a man who carries the weight of the golden maknae title, the pressure to be perfect is an invisible cage. We saw the aftermath in the reality series Bon Voyage, where a visibly somber Jungkook sat before the cameras and apologized. He apologized to the fans, not for doing something wrong, but for the trouble the situation had caused. It was a heartbreaking moment of a young star taking the blame for the world's invasive curiosity. Think about the reflection here. Why are we so quick to burn down the people we claim to love over a single grainy photo? The facts were clear. Big Hit Entertainment immediately filed lawsuits against the individual who leaked the CCTV footage, citing a violation of personal information and defamation. The truth was that there was no scandal, only a group of friends hanging out during a vacation. Yet the scars of that incident lingered. It was a wake-up call for the entire industry about the dangers of sasaeng culture and the terrifying ease with which a private moment can be distorted into a career-ending narrative. It forces us to ask, do we own our idols or do we owe them the dignity of a private life? This incident almost broke the bond of trust between the artist and the public, showing us that even the strongest armor has cracks when hit with the poison of misinformation. It was a trial by fire that Jungkook survived, but it changed the way he moved in the world forever. The Jeju Island incident remains a dark blueprint for how the digital age can turn a simple dinner into a national crisis, and it serves as a haunting reminder that behind every headline is a human being just trying to breathe. As we look back, we have to wonder, if the cameras were turned on us during our most private moments, would we be able to withstand the judgment of millions? This was just the beginning of the gauntlet Jungkook had to run, proving that being at the top means you are the biggest target for those who want to see you fall. Number 9. The Itaewon Night, the pandemic's cruelest judgment. A time when the entire planet was navigating the terrifying first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. For Jungkook, a young man who had spent his entire adolescence under the scorching heat of the spotlight, the world had become even smaller, yet the expectations placed upon his shoulders had grown to a size that was almost impossible for any human to carry. The scandal that would soon erupt wasn't just about a night out, it was about the intersection of a global crisis and the unforgiving microscope of celebrity culture, where a single dinner could be twisted into a narrative of national betrayal. It started with whispers on the internet, which soon snowballed into a massive, exclusive report by Dispatch, alleging that Jungkook, along with his close friends from the famous 97-liner squad, Mingyu of 17, Cha Eun-woo of Astro, and Jaehyun of NCT, had visited the Itaewon neighborhood during the height of the social distancing period. In an instant, the narrative was set. These young idols were being reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous. But as with all stories designed to trigger outrage, the facts were buried beneath a mountain of sensationalism. The truth was far more nuanced, yet far less clickable. The outing actually took place in late April, a period when the South Korean government had significantly relaxed its social distancing guidelines, and before the notorious Itaewon club cluster had even emerged. They weren't in a crowded, illegal club, they were at a restaurant and a small bar, following the rules that were in place at that specific moment. However, the timing of the news report, which broke just as a new wave of infections was hitting the country, made it look like they had directly defied public health orders. The backlash was instantaneous and visceral. Jungkook, as the most visible member of the world's biggest group, became the primary target for a nation's collective fear and frustration. People who had never even heard a BTS song were suddenly calling for his head, and a petition was even filed with the Blue House to revoke the group's Order of Cultural Merit, a prestigious honor they had earned for their contributions to Korean culture. Can you imagine the sheer weight of that? Being 22 years old and feeling like you are personally responsible for the safety of an entire nation because the media decided to frame your dinner as a crime? The psychological toll was immense. While Big Hit Entertainment and the other agencies issued formal apologies and confirmed that all the idols had tested negative for the virus and were showing no symptoms, the court of public opinion had already passed its verdict. The fake element of this scandal wasn't that he went out, he did, but the fake narrative was the claim that he had acted with malice or a blatant disregard for safety, or that he had visited the specific danger zones identified by health officials. He hadn't. He was a young man trying to find a moment of normalcy with his friends during a brief window of relaxed rules, but in the eyes of the public, he was no longer allowed to be human. He was a symbol, and symbols aren't allowed to make mistakes. The most heart-wrenching part of this entire ordeal came later, during a radio broadcast with Suga, where Jungkook's voice was heavy with a type of sadness that only comes from deep personal reflection. He didn't make excuses. He didn't point out the hypocrisy of the media. He simply apologized, his voice trembling as he expressed his regret for the pain he might have caused the fans who had always supported him. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered vulnerability that showed the true character of Jungkook, a man who takes the world's burdens on his back, even when there aren't his to carry. This incident serves as a chilling reminder of how easily the internet can weaponize a global crisis to tear down an individual, and how the line between public interest and character assassination is often blurred beyond recognition. It makes us wonder, in our rush to find someone to blame during a time of fear, do we forget that the people on our screens are just as scared and just as prone to error as we are? How many of us could truly say we followed every suggestion perfectly during those long months of isolation? The Itaewon scandal almost extinguished the light of one of the world's most talented performers, not because of what he did, but because of how the world chose to see it. It was a trial by fire that forced Jungkook to grow up in the most painful way possible, proving that even the golden maknae isn't immune to the shadows of a world in crisis. Number 8. The Midas touch sabotage, the wardrobe of deception. Imagine the weight of a gold-plated curse, where every single item you touch, every drink you sip, and every shirt you wear instantly vanishes from store shelves across the globe. This is the reality of Jeon Jungkook, a man whose influence is so potent, it's often referred to as the Midas touch. From fabric softener to kombucha, Jungkook has the power to shift global markets just by existing. But in the volatile landscape of 2021, this incredible gift was weaponized against him in a calculated attempt to brand him as a corporate deceiver. This was the era of the Dwitgwango, or backdoor advertising scandal in South Korea, a time when the public was hypersensitized to celebrities who promoted products without disclosing paid partnerships, and the vultures were waiting for the biggest name in the industry to make a mistake. The controversy centered around a brand called Graffiti Mind, launched by a company named 66YS, where Jungkook's own brother, Jeon Junghyun, served as the CEO. The scandal erupted when Jungkook appeared on a V-Live broadcast and posted photos on social media wearing the brand's apparel, most notably a striking purple sweater, without explicitly stating that he had a personal connection to the company or that it was an advertisement. In an instant, the narrative shifted from a brother supporting a brother to a global superstar engaging in understated marketing to manipulate his fans for familial profit. The backlash was sharp and meticulously orchestrated. A citizen even went as far as to file a formal complaint with the Fair Trade Commission, South Korea's antitrust watchdog, demanding an investigation into Jungkook's deceptive practices. Think about the sheer emotional gravity of that moment for a young man who has always been transparent with his fans. Jungkook wasn't being paid to wear those clothes. He was simply wearing his brother's hard work, yet the world saw it as a calculated business move. The psychological pressure led to Jungkook quietly resigning from his position as an internal director at 66YS, a role he likely took on out of support for his sibling to protect the group and the company from further vitriol. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the media dissected every like and every tag, trying to prove a level of greed that simply didn't exist. But let's look at the facts that the outrage ignored. The FTC eventually dropped the case, clarifying that simply wearing an item of clothing without an explicit "buy this" call to action or a proven financial contract for promotion does not constitute illegal backdoor advertising. Jungkook wasn't selling anything. The fans were simply buying what he wore because they loved him. The fake nature of this scandal lies in the malicious framing of a personal, familial gesture as a cold corporate conspiracy.
This incident forced a profound reflection on the price of success. When you are so famous that your very wardrobe is a liability, how do you even begin to support the people you love? It was a heartbreaking realization for Jungkook and the army that even the most innocent show of brotherly pride could be twisted into a legal battle. The irony was palpable. A man who accidentally sold out a year's supply of fabric softener just by mentioning its name certainly didn't need backdoor tactics to help his brother's brand. Yet the scars of the graffiti mined incident served as a stark reminder of the tall poppy syndrome in the idol industry. The higher you grow, the more people want to cut you down for the simple crime of being successful. It was a period of intense scrutiny that saw Jungkook retreating further into a cautious shell, realizing that his influence was a double-edged sword that could hurt the very people he tried to help. As we deconstruct this, we have to ask ourselves, at what point does our demand for transparency become a tool for harassment? Was the world truly worried about consumer rights, or were they just looking for a reason to see the golden maknae fail? This scandal didn't destroy his career, but it certainly robbed him of the simple joy of wearing his brother's clothes, leaving behind a narrative of survival in a world that waits for you to trip so it can call it a fall.
Number 7. The Cyber Wrecker's Web, the invisible romance of shadows. Imagine living in a world where your every heartbeat is monitored by a digital ghost, an entity that exists only to profit from your downfall by stitching together a tapestry of lies from the threads of your everyday life. This was the haunting reality for Jungkook in late 2021 when the rise of the cyber wrecker, a new breed of malicious YouTube agitator, targeted him with a sophisticated web of misinformation that almost redefined his public image. The scandal didn't start with a photo or a leaked document. It started with a theory, a meticulously crafted video that claimed Jungkook was in a secret long-term relationship with actress Lee Yoo-bi, and the evidence was as flimsy as it was dangerous. This YouTuber, known for spreading baseless rumors about idols for clicks and ad revenue, pointed to Lovestagram posts claiming that both stars were wearing matching couple items like bracelets and that they shared secret signals through purple heart emojis. Think about the sheer absurdity of this situation. A global superstar who spends 16 hours a day in practice rooms and studios being accused of a secret life based on the color of a heart or the brand of a jacket. The narrative was fueled by the Maneki Neko bracelet, a common accessory that both allegedly wore, and the fact that Jungkook's brother and Lee Yoo-bi's sibling followed each other on social media. In the hyper-connected yet deeply lonely world of the digital age, these coincidences were weaponized into a truth that millions began to consume. The emotional toll was staggering, not just for Jungkook, but for Lee Yoo-bi, who was suddenly thrust into the center of a storm she never asked for, receiving waves of unearned vitriol from people who believed the YouTuber's lies. This was a direct assault on Jungkook's character, framing him as someone who was sneaking around behind the backs of his fans, a narrative designed to erode the foundation of trust he had spent a decade building. As the rumors spiraled out of control, both Big Hit Music and Lee Yoo-bi's agency were forced to issue stern denials, stating clearly that the two didn't even know each other personally, let alone were in a relationship. But in the ecosystem of fake news, a denial is often treated as a cover-up by the conspiracy theorists. Can you feel the frustration of being a young man who is literally unable to exist in the same digital space as another person without it being turned into a career-threatening scandal? The psychological impact of cyber wreckers is a dark chapter in the K-pop industry. These creators don't care about the truth, they care about the engagement that controversy brings. Jungkook was being used as a pawn in a game of algorithmic profit. This incident forced a deeper reflection on our own consumption of media. Why are we so willing to believe a stranger with a microphone and a green screen over the words of the person we admire? The fake scandal of the Lee Yu-bi romance wasn't just a dating rumor, it was a symptom of a deeper sickness in our society, the craving for secret knowledge that allows us to feel superior to those in the spotlight. It was a moment of profound vulnerability for Jungkook, as he realized that no matter how honest he was, there would always be someone willing to invent a version of him that served their own pockets. The resilience he showed during this period was quiet but powerful. He didn't lash out, he didn't engage with the madness, he simply continued to pour his soul into his music, proving that a lie, no matter how loud, can never truly silence the truth of a person's heart. This scandal remains a chilling reminder that in the age of the internet, the most dangerous weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's a story told by someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain from your destruction. It makes us ask ourselves, if the world was looking for patterns in our lives to prove a lie, how long would it take before they found a way to make us look like the villain of our own story? Jungkook survived the cyber wrecker's web, but it left behind a lingering question about the cost of fame in a world that no longer values the truth, only the sensation.
Number 6. The Coachella Crowd Whisper, the girl in the desert heat. In April 2023, amidst the sea of flower crowns and designer streetwear, there was one man who desperately wanted to be just another face in the crowd, a soul looking to lose himself in the rhythm of the music he loves, Jungkook Jung. But for a person whose presence can shift the gravity of a room, anonymity is a luxury that has long since been revoked. The scandal that erupted wasn't born from a stage performance or a high-profile interview, but from the simple, human act of attending a concert. It started with a series of blurry, long-lens photographs and shaky TikTok videos captured by eagle-eyed attendees who had spotted the golden maknae in the VIP section. In these frames, Jungkook was seen standing with a group of people, but the internet's collective gaze immediately narrowed down to a single person standing near him, a young woman. Within hours, the digital world was on fire. The narrative was instantly manufactured. Jungkook caught at Coachella with his secret girlfriend. The golden maknae is no longer hiding his romance. Is this the end of the idol fan fantasy? The speed at which this fake scandal traveled was terrifying, fueled by the obsessive need of the internet to ship or expose every private interaction. People began dissecting the woman's outfit, her height, the way she stood, and even the vibes between them, claiming that their proximity was proof of a deep, hidden relationship. But let's step back and look at the reality of that moment, a reality that is far more poignant and reflective of the price Jungkook pays for his fame. Jungkook didn't go to Coachella to start a scandal. He went as a fan of the arts, hoping to witness the performances of artists like Blackpink, Bad Bunny, and Frank Ocean. He had even cut his own hair, a fringe that he thought would make him harder to recognize, showing a level of endearing naivete about his own global impact. When he realized he had been spotted, he didn't hide in a trailer or call for extra security. He took to Weverse with a sense of humor that was both heartbreaking and incredibly sweet, admitting that he thought his disguise had worked and that he was surprised fans had found him. The mystery woman in question, she was never identified as anything more than a member of a larger group of friends or staff. Yet for 3 days, she was the most hated and envied person on the internet. This scandal highlights the fake nature of the idol dating myth, the idea that a man cannot stand within 3 feet of a woman without it being a romantic declaration. It was a calculated attempt by anti-fans and gossip-hungry bloggers to create a rift between Jungkook and his supporters, using the Coachella setting, a place synonymous with freedom and intimacy, to paint a picture of betrayal. The psychological weight of this is immense. Can you imagine the anxiety of standing in a crowd trying to enjoy your favorite song while knowing that every time you turn your head, a camera lens is recording you, waiting for a moment to sell to a tabloid? This incident forced us to reflect on the parasocial relationships that define modern stardom. Why does the world feel entitled to every heartbeat of Jungkook Jung?
The truth was simple. He was a 25-year-old man enjoying a festival, yet the fake narrative nearly eclipsed the joy of his trip. It was a moment where the boundary between public interest and stalking became non-existent. The fallout wasn't a PR disaster, but a quiet realization for the fans that their golden maknae is often a prisoner of his own success, unable to even walk through a desert without being branded a scandalous figure. The Coachella incident didn't destroy his career, but it served as a stark reminder of the invisible walls that surround him, proving that in the age of the smartphone, there is no such thing as a private vacation for an icon. It makes us ask, if we truly love an artist, why are we so desperate to catch them in a lie that we end up inventing one ourselves? The girl in the desert heat was a ghost of our own making, a product of a culture that values exposure over human connection. Jungkook survived this wave of speculation with his usual grace, but the scars of being found when he wanted to be lost are details of a larger, more emotional story of a man who just wants to be part of the music, not the headline. As the desert wind blew away the rumors, we were left with the image of a young man, fringe slightly crooked, realizing that the world would never let him just be a fan again. It was a trial of identity that showed the strength of his bond with ARMY, but also the terrifying reach of the fake scandal machine that turns every shadow into a story.
Number 5. The New York smokescreen, the shadow of the Big Apple. Step into the concrete jungle, the city where dreams are built and reputations are shattered in a New York minute. It's 2023, and Jungkook is no longer the wide-eyed teenager from Busan. He is a global phenomenon, the man behind the record-shattering hit, 7. But as he walked the streets of Manhattan, a different kind of lens was focused on him, one that didn't care about his music, but was hungry for a fall from grace. What happens when a single exhaled breath becomes a national headline? Is it possible for a man to be too perfect for his own good? In a world that demands its idols remain frozen in time as innocent children, how does the golden maknae reclaim his right to be an adult? Are we witnessing a scandal, or are we witnessing the birth of a man who refuses to be a puppet? Prepare yourself, because we are peeling back the layers of the NYC smokescreen to find the truth hidden in the shadows of the Big Apple. Can you handle the reality that your hero is human? Let's find out. Imagine the scene. New York City, September 2023. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of rain, street food, and the relentless energy of a metropolis that never sleeps. Jungkook is at the absolute zenith of his solo career. 7 has dominated the Billboard charts, and he is in town for high-profile appearances, including the Global Citizen Festival. He is the image of success, the golden maknae who transitioned seamlessly from a boy group member to a global pop titan. But beneath the surface of this triumph, a storm was brewing. A set of paparazzi photos captured outside a high-end restaurant where Jungkook had been dining with his staff suddenly flooded the internet. In these images, Jungkook was seen standing on the sidewalk, seemingly holding a cigarette or a vape, with a small cloud of smoke or vapor catching the streetlights. Within seconds, not minutes, but seconds, the fake scandal machine roared to life. The narrative wasn't just Jungkook is smoking, it was a full-scale moral panic. The headlines in certain tabloid outlets and the vitriol on social media forums were framed as if he had committed a heinous crime. They called it the fall of the golden image, claiming he was corrupting the youth, destroying his vocal cords, and betraying the trust of the fans who looked up to him as a paragon of purity. But let's dissect the fake nature of this controversy and the staggering hypocrisy that fueled it. The scandal was manufactured on the premise that an adult man, 26 years old at the time, doing something perfectly legal in his private time was a betrayal. This was a calculated character assassination attempt designed to weaponize his clean image against him. For years, the industry had marketed Jungkook as the forever young youngest member, and the fake scandal relied on the audience's refusal to let him grow up. The psychological weight of this was immense. Imagine being a man who has spent over a decade giving every ounce of his energy, his blood, and his tears to the public, only to have that same public attempt to crucify him for a moment of personal autonomy on a New York sidewalk. The photos themselves were a massive breach of privacy, taken by a paparazzi who had been stalking his movements through the city. Yet, the discourse didn't focus on the ethics of stalking, it focused on the morality of a cigarette.
The irony was deafening. Here was a man who had just delivered one of the most successful songs of the decade, yet the world wanted to talk about a puff of smoke. The reflection here is deep and painful. It forces us to look at the golden cage of the K-pop idol system. Why is a male pop star in the West, like Harry Styles or Justin Bieber, allowed to have vices or adult moments without it being a career-ending scandal, while Jungkook is expected to be a saint? The fake part of the scandal was the idea that this habit was a sign of a troubled or rebellious phase. It wasn't rebellion, it was existence. The emotional fallout was visible in the way the fandom, the army, had to go to war to defend his right to be a human being. We saw a divide between those who wanted to protect an image of a child and those who respected the man he had become. Jungkook himself, as always, handled the noise with a quiet, resilient dignity. He didn't issue a growling apology because he had nothing to apologize for. He had reached a point in his career where he was choosing authenticity over the perfect idol script. This incident was a turning point, a moment where the Golden Maknae label was officially outgrown. The scandal tried to paint him as a bad boy who had lost his way, but the reality showed a man who was simply tired of hiding. Think about the atmosphere of that night, the flashing cameras, the cold New York air, and the realization that even thousands of miles from Seoul, there is no escape from the judgment of the world. This scandal almost derailed the 7 promotions, not because of the act itself, but because of the fake narrative of disappointment that the media tried to force upon the fans. It was a test of the bond between Jungkook and his audience. Would they love the man or the mask? As the smoke cleared, literally and figuratively, what remained was a stronger, more defiant artist who proved that his talent and his character are not defined by a single paparazzi shot. But it leaves us with a haunting question. In our obsession with the purity of our icons, are we the ones who are actually being toxic? Are we so afraid of our heroes being human that we try to destroy them the moment they show a flaw? The NYC smokescreen was a mirror held up to society, revealing the ugly truth of our own expectations. Jungkook walked through that fire and came out on the other side, no longer just a boy in a band, but a man who owns his choices, his mistakes, and his life. The world tried to make it a scandal. Jungkook made it a statement of independence. Number 4. The Jeju Island Mirage. The table for two that never was. Imagine the serene, emerald blue waters of Jeju Island, the Hawaii of Korea, where the air is thick with the scent of salt spray and the quiet rustle of halabong trees. This is where the world's most famous pop star, Jungkook, sought a brief moment of sanctuary in early 2023. But even in this paradise, the shadows of the digital age were lurking, waiting to turn a quiet meal into a career-threatening firestorm. The scandal erupted when a grainy, candid photograph began circulating on Chinese social media platforms like Weibo before exploding onto Twitter and TikTok. The image showed Jungkook sitting at a restaurant, dressed casually in a hoodie, seated next to a woman whose face was partially obscured. In the blink of an eye, the fake scandal machinery, fueled by thousands of speculators, had already written the script. Jungkook was on a secret romantic getaway, the woman was his long-term hidden girlfriend, and they were flaunting their relationship in public. The speed of the spread was breathtaking, a testament to the terrifying power of a single pixelated image.
Think about the psychological violence of that moment, being a 25-year-old man who simply wants to eat lunch only to have the entire world dissect the distance between your shoulder and the person next to you. The narrative became increasingly toxic as detectives on the internet began matching the woman's outfits to previous sightings and even claiming they found evidence of her presence at his private residence. But let's look at the facts that the outrage-hungry crowd ignored. The restaurant was not a private, secluded, romantic nook. It was a well-known, bustling eatery where Jungkook was dining with a large group of people, including his staff and longtime friends. The mystery woman in the photo? She was eventually revealed to be a member of the production staff, or a friend of the group, and some reports even indicated she was significantly older than the speculators claimed. The owner of the restaurant even stepped forward to clarify that Jungkook had visited with several companions and was nothing but polite and professional, yet his voice was nearly drowned out by the roar of the dating scandal narrative. This incident forced a profound reflection on the parasocial contract that governs the lives of K-pop idols. Why are we so desperate to catch Jungkook in a moment of intimacy that we are willing to invent a romance out of thin air? The emotional weight for Jungkook was clear. He has often spoken about how he feels a deep responsibility to the army, and the idea that he was hiding something from them was a narrative designed to break that very bond. The fake nature of this scandal lies in the deliberate cropping of the photo. The original, unedited version showed other people at the table, but the version that went viral was cropped to make it look like a private dinner for two. This was a calculated manipulation of reality, a digital lie designed to generate clicks and chaos. Can you imagine the frustration of having your reality edited by a stranger with a cropping tool? As the rumors spiraled, the psychological toll on the innocent woman involved was equally devastating, as she became the target of intense scrutiny and harassment simply for sitting next to a global icon. This moment in Jeju wasn't a scandal of morality, it was a scandal of surveillance. It makes us ask, when does our love for an artist turn into a cage? How many of us could survive our every lunch being scrutinized by 10 million judges? The Jeju Island mirage didn't destroy his career, but it showed the world just how fragile the truth can be when it's up against a compelling lie. It was a trial of patience and a reminder that for Jungkook, there is no such thing as a day off from being a target. As we look back on this, we see a man who has had to develop an incredible emotional resilience, choosing to stay silent and let the truth eventually catch up to the lie. But the sting of being watched, even in paradise, is a detail that adds a layer of sorrow to his glittering success. This incident serves as a haunting warning about the cropper's truth, that what we don't see in the frame is often more important than what we do see. Jungkook emerged from the Jeju storm with his integrity intact, but the world was left to wonder, if we keep trying to trap him in these fake narratives, will there ever be a place left where he can truly feel free? This was more than a dating rumor. It was a battle for the right to exist without being a headline, a battle Jungkook continues to fight every single day.
Number 3. The glass prism sabotage, the silhouette in the hotel window. Imagine the heavy, humid air of a late summer night in a foreign city, where the neon lights reflect off the rain-slicked pavement like a fractured dream, and inside a luxury hotel suite, a young man seeks nothing more than a moment of quiet after the deafening roar of a stadium crowd. This was the setting for one of the most terrifyingly sophisticated character assassinations ever directed at Jungkook. In late 2023, as Jungkook was conquering the global charts with his solo album Golden, a short, blurry video began to circulate on Chinese social media platforms like TikTok and Weibo, quickly leaping across the digital ocean to infect the global consciousness. The footage, shot from a distance with a high-powered zoom lens, claimed to show Jungkook inside a private residence or hotel room, standing with his back to the window, and most devastatingly, it appeared to show him embracing a woman. In the world of the golden maknae, where his image is built on a foundation of crystalline transparency and an almost spiritual bond with his fans, this wasn't just a dating rumor, it was framed as a betrayal of the sanctuary. The narrative was instantly weaponized by malicious actors who claimed that while Jungkook was telling his fans he was lonely or only thinking of ARMY during his live streams, he was actually living a double life of luxury and secret romance. Think about the sheer, suffocating pressure of that moment. Imagine being 26 years old at the absolute peak of human achievement and realizing that even the walls of your own room have eyes, and those eyes are being used to lie about your soul. The fake nature of this scandal was a masterclass in digital deception and the Rashomon effect, where a single piece of evidence is interpreted through the lens of one's own prejudice. The video was so low quality, so filled with digital noise and motion blur, that the human brain, driven by the pareidolia effect, began to see what the captions told it to see. Anti-fans began frame-by-frame analyses, claiming they could see specific pieces of furniture that matched Jungkook's known apartment, or that the silhouette's proportions were unmistakably his. But as the firestorm grew, the truth began to emerge from the shadows of the digital fog, revealing a reality that was far more sinister than a simple romance. Independent forensic analysis by fans and digital experts revealed that the video was a composite of several different clips, or potentially a deep fake staged to look like a paparazzi leak. The lighting in the room didn't match the exterior time of day, and the furniture that supposedly matched his home was actually standard-issue decor from a high-end hotel chain. More importantly, the person in the video, when scrutinized without the suggestive captions, lacked the distinctive tattoos that covered Jungkook's right arm, a detail that the perpetrators tried to hide with strategic blurring and low-light filters. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a glass prism sabotage, a calculated attempt to fracture Jungkook's reputation by using the very thing he values most, his honesty, against him. The psychological toll of this specific scandal was unique because it invaded his safe space. For years, Jungkook has opened his home to fans through hours-long, unscripted live streams, sharing his laundry, his cooking, and his sleep. The hotel window scandal was designed to turn that intimacy into a weapon, suggesting that the Jungkook fans knew was a fictional character. Can you feel the cold, sharp edge of that realization, that the more you give of yourself, the more people try to take what's left? This incident forced a profound reflection on the death of privacy in the 21st century, where a global icon cannot even stand near a window without becoming the protagonist of a manufactured tragedy. The fallout was a period of intense online warfare, where the truth had to be fought for inch by inch against an algorithm that rewards sensationalism over fact. Jungkook's response was, as always, a testament to his mental fortitude. He didn't hide and he didn't stop his live streams. Instead, he addressed the concept of sasaengs and privacy with a calm, almost weary maturity, stating that he knew people were watching, but that he would continue to live his life. It was a moment of supreme resilience, a refusal to be intimidated by the shadows on the glass. This scandal almost destroyed his career, not because of a forbidden relationship, but because it tried to destroy the truth of Jungkook, attempting to replace the hard-working, sincere artist with a cynical, deceptive celebrity. It makes us ask the most uncomfortable question of the digital age. In a world of deep fakes and long-lens cameras, how do we protect the humanity of the people we put on pedestals? The silhouette in the window was a ghost, a digital phantom created by those who envy his light. But the way Jungkook walked through that phantom without breaking proved that while you can fake a video, you can never fake the kind of character that takes a decade to build. This was the ultimate trial of his golden era, a reminder that the brighter the sun shines, the more the shadows will try to creep in through the cracks. And for Jungkook, the battle for his own narrative had become the most important performance of his life. As the world moved on to the next headline, the image of that silhouette remained a haunting symbol of the price of fame. A man trapped in a room of glass, while the world outside waits for a single frame that they can twist into a lie. But Jungkook didn't break the glass. He simply looked through it, and in doing so, he showed us that the truth doesn't need a high-powered lens. It only needs the courage to stay real in a world that is increasingly fake. This was the moment the golden maknae became a golden shield, protecting his identity from the vultures of the internet, and proving that his bond with the world is built on something far more durable than a pixelated video. Number 2. The Instagram blackout. The $50 million silence. Imagine a digital empire. A sprawling landscape of over 52 million souls, all connected by a single thread to one man, Jungkook. In the modern age, a social media following of that magnitude isn't just a number. It is a geopolitical force, a marketing juggernaut, and a direct window into the soul of the world's most famous artist. But on February 28, 2023, without a single warning, without a press release, and without a final goodbye, that window was slammed shut. The account, Jungkook.97, simply ceased to exist. In an instant, the golden maknae had vanished from the digital world, and the vacuum left behind was immediately filled by a suffocating, toxic cloud of misinformation that nearly brought the entire industry to its knees. This was the Instagram blackout, a moment that proved silence can be louder than any scream, and that in the absence of information, the world will invent its own dark reality. The fake scandal that erupted wasn't about a single act, but a series of terrifying narratives that Jungkook was undergoing a mental health crisis, that he was being silenced or punished by HYBE for some hidden transgression, or the most heart-stopping rumor of all, that he was preparing to leave BTS and the music industry forever. Think about the sheer psychological weight of that moment for a fandom that relies on these digital breadcrumbs to feel connected to their idol. The media didn't just report the deletion, they psychoanalyzed it with a predatory intensity. Tabloids in Korea and abroad began running think pieces about the unbearable pressure Jungkook was under, citing his recent rebellious behavior, the tattoos, the late-night live streams, the refusal to follow the perfect idol script, as evidence of a man on the brink of a total breakdown. The narrative was clear. The golden boy was breaking, and the deletion of his Instagram was his final SOS. But let's deconstruct the fake nature of this panic and the staggering reality of Jungkook's autonomy. While the world was mourning a tragedy and investors were frantically checking stock prices, Jungkook was likely sitting on his sofa, perhaps with a glass of macana, wondering why everyone was making such a fuss. The fake scandal was a creation of a society that cannot conceive of a person choosing to walk away from influence. We have become so addicted to the attention economy that we view the rejection of it as a symptom of illness. The evidence of his punishment was equally absurd. Conspiracy theorists claimed the agency had seized his phone because he was too honest during his Weverse lives, where he would sing for hours, fall asleep on camera, or speak candidly about his life. They framed his authenticity as a liability that had to be managed, turning a young man's desire for privacy into a corporate thriller. The emotional toll on the army was visceral. There was a collective sense of grief, a fear that the last bridge to Jungkook had been burned. But then, as he always does, Jungkook stepped into the light of Weverse to deliver the ultimate anti-scandal statement. He didn't issue a formal apology. He didn't give a tearful explanation about his mental health. He simply said, "I deleted it. It's not because it was hacked. I just didn't use it much, so I deleted it. Don't worry." Can you feel the sheer world-shaking power of that simplicity?
In those few words, he dismantled a multi-million-dollar narrative of collapse and replaced it with the ultimate flex of human freedom. He was telling the world that 50 million followers meant nothing compared to his own peace of mind. The Instagram blackout serves as a profound reflection on the golden cage of celebrity. Why do we interpret a man's desire for a simpler life as a scandal? Why are we so threatened by the idea that Jungkook doesn't need our likes to know his own worth? This incident almost destroyed his career's marketability in the eyes of corporate analysts who see idols only as data points, but it solidified his legendary status as a human being who cannot be bought, sold, or predicted. It was a trial by fire for the digital age, a moment where Jungkook proved that he is the master of his own narrative, not the algorithm. The fake scandal was the world's projection of its own insecurities onto a man who was simply tired of scrolling. As we look back at the $50 million silence, we have to ask ourselves, are we the ones who are truly trapped in the digital cage? If we lost everything we owned online tomorrow, would we have the courage to say, I just didn't use it much, and walk away into the sunlight? Jungkook didn't just delete an app, he deleted the expectations of an entire planet, and in the quiet that followed, he found a new kind of gold. This was the penultimate test of his identity, a reminder that before he is the golden maknae.
Number 1. The military sabotage, the invisible criminal record of the golden soldier. Imagine the heavy, oppressive silence of a military barracks in the dead of winter, where the temperature drops below freezing, and the only thing colder than the wind is the realization that while you are serving your country, the world outside is busy sharpening knives for your back. This is the absolute peak of our list, the ultimate fake scandal that didn't just target Jungkook, the pop star, but Jungkook, the citizen, the soldier, and the man. It happened in the quietest period of his career, while he was fulfilling his mandatory service, a time when an idol is supposed to be safe from the chaos of the industry. But for Jungkook, the shadows followed him even behind the barbed-wired fences of the training center. The scandal broke not in a reputable newspaper, but in the dark, unregulated corners of the cyber wrecker YouTube community, where a series of high-production, sensationalist videos began to claim that Jungkook was being disciplined, demoted, and that he possessed a hidden criminal record that the agency had spent millions to suppress. Think about the sheer, visceral horror of that narrative. In South Korean society, military conduct and a clean legal record are the two most sacred pillars of public trust. To attack an idol on these fronts is to attempt a total social execution. The rumors started with a leaked, blurred document that was supposedly a military disciplinary report, claiming Jungkook had received special treatment that backfired, leading to a demotion in rank. This was followed by a malicious fabrication involving a past bullying record from his school days in Busan, a ghost of the past designed to align with the current cultural sensitivity towards school violence. The narrative was meticulously crafted to make it look like the golden maknae image was a mask for a delinquent reality. Can you feel the weight of the betrayal? Here was a man who had enlisted early, despite being at the height of his solo success, to ensure the group could reunite faster. A man who was reportedly excelling in his duties as a warrior, yet the internet was being fed a story that he was a criminal and a disgrace to the uniform. The psychological warfare was intense. Because Jungkook was in the military, he couldn't jump on a vlog to laugh it off. He couldn't post a selfie to prove his rank. He was effectively silenced by the very law he was serving. The fake nature of this scandal was so deep that it required an unprecedented emergency legal intervention from HYBE. The agency didn't just issue a denial, they launched a massive, multinational legal dragnet, revealing that the leaked documents were sophisticated forgeries and that the witnesses to his supposed bullying from his school days were paid actors or bots controlled by a centralized anti-fan operation. The truth was far more inspiring. Jungkook wasn't being demoted, he was being recognized for his exemplary service, maintaining the same humility and work
work ethic in the trenches that he showed on the world's biggest stages. This scandal forces us to reflect on the vulnerability of the absent, the terrifying reality that when our heroes go quiet to fulfill their duties, the vultures see it as an opportunity to feast on their reputation. Why are we so eager to believe the worst about the people who have given us their best? The invisible criminal record was a phantom created by those who couldn't stand to see a man reach the top without falling, a desperate attempt to stain the one thing that remained golden, his integrity. The emotional fallout was a massive wave of protective energy from the army, who realized that the battle for Jungkook's legacy was now being fought in courtrooms and military records. It was a moment of profound realization that fame is a war that never ends, even when you change your designer clothes for a camouflage uniform. As the legal hammers fell and the cyber wreckers were exposed and sued into oblivion, the image of Jungkook that remained was one of unshakable strength. He survived the attempt to erase his honor, proving that a true golden heart doesn't just shine in the spotlight. It remains untarnished in the dark, in the cold, and in the face of the most calculated lies. This was the final boss, the ultimate test of his career, and in the end, the scandal didn't destroy him. It only proved that the man Jungkook is far more powerful than the myth the world tried to burn down. As we close this documentary of shadows, we realize that the Golden Maknae isn't just a title, it's a shield, forged in the fires of 1,000 lies and polished by the truth that can never be hidden for long.